Welcome back. We take a look at political developments in the week. The ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule standing firm yesterday, saying he won't step aside and that the ANC does not belong to any one individual. He was appearing in court alongside 7 others on allegations of fraud and corruption of a tender worth more than 200 million rand with regards to an asbestos project. That says the State Capture Commission released a statement saying it's unsure whether former President Jacob Zuma will comply with an order to appear before it next week. For more on this, we joined by political analyst Ongama Mtimka. A very good evening to you, Ongama, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Just your assessment of the scenes that we saw play out yesterday. I think quite a few people saying they were taken aback at the level of hostilities, but others are saying that they'd predicted this. In fact, the former COSATU General Secretary Mbazi Mashiloa, saying that the ANC never changes its spots. He called it a long time ago that when it came to the appearance of Ace Magashule, the ANC will continue towing this line of just basically being hands off.
Greetings to you from the friendly city, Tsapiso, and your viewers. Thank you for having me this evening. Indeed, it's a script from an old a game that has been played by President Jacob Zuma to cry foul of the process and present the accused person as an untouchable politically. So I think it's a continuation of the same tendency. There are politicians within the ANC that feel that that don't have a comprehension of the idea of limited power, and therefore feel that state processes that are meant to have them answer allegations of maladministration, corruption, and fraud are aimed to humiliate them and are driven by their political opponents. And generally, people who hold that view do not necessarily, think about the merits of the cases that they face as to if there wasn't any political coinciding process. Would these allegations that you are facing make sense in their own merits and what your response is to them? So I think it's a culture which I hope never gets to be entrenched in South Africa. I'm glad that the judiciary is very conscious of it, and that when they make decisions in court, they are very much aware of the political dynamics, but are still able to assert themselves in terms of making decisions that are justice compliant, as it were.
As you say, it's a script from, or it's an old script, but the whole important thing is there going to be a turnaround? We're looking now towards next week where a former President Jacob Zuma is going to appear before the State Capture Commission. He's made it very clear that he believes that these allegations are politically motivated. This was also implied, not in fact, it was explicitly said by supporters of Ace Magashule yesterday, that there are certain people who are being persecuted, and it's people who are looking out for the interests of the poor, the downtrodden in this country, the disenfranchised. Are we going to see a change? Is there going to be accountability at some point?
Sure. So institutions of law enforcement and judicial institutions have got to hold the line. When these politicians make the kind of unfair statements that they make against the judiciary and law enforcement institutions, they want to intimidate them into non-action and ensure that they remain in the powerful positions that they hold and their career pathways remain intact. So when the institutions hold the line, they are helping to ensure that the institutional architecture of South Africa works to strengthen democracy. So we know that at some stage in the history of South Africa, those institutions were repurposed by making sure that the competency was removed from them, such that you had people who felt more that they had a liability to the sitting president or powerful politicians. Once you change that leadership and put in people who feel they are qualified for the jobs, you win part of the battle. The next level, the next frontier becomes the resilience and the composure to withstand the unfair criticism and the politicking of opponent of accused persons or those that are appearing before commissions.
Let's talk about that. What do you make
Sure.
of the Commission's statement that it put out saying that it's not sure whether or not President Jacob Zuma would comply with an order to appear before it? But it does also say in the same statement that Mr. Zuma's lawyers have not given any indication otherwise that he will not comply. What do you see as the purpose of the statement and
Sure.
its intent?
So what I like about the Commission's approach, starting from the Deputy Chief Justice himself, is that they don't, they've got enough grace to regard some of the machinations that are made by these politicians and respond to them. And then what I like is that they are also very assertive about what the due process is and how the witnesses should comply with it. So, for example, with President Jacob Zuma, notwithstanding the irritating tone and approach that they and the Jacob Zuma Foundation have taken against the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, they remain firm in their demands for him to come and appear before it, and also in asserting the preeminence of the processes that they outline for him. So, for example, what I noted is that they are acceding to hear the debate, the representations about the recusal of the chairperson. And they have done so in a way that still creates accountability for President Jacob Zuma, because they are hearing the arguments on Monday, and still he's still expected to appear before it. Jacob Zuma is buying time with his legal team and not expressing an opinion as to whether or not they're going to respond to the summons. But the Commission is very assertive. I like
All right.
that.
I want to quickly go to another matter before we leave it, and that is the fact that Bandile Masuku, the former House MEC in Gauteng, has been granted permission at the North Gauteng High Court, I believe, to have a hearing before a full bench of judges to appeal his dismissal. Very interesting things that he'll also be asking the judges to look at: the principles and practice of executive oversight, the powers and mandate of the Special Investigative Unit. Do you see that's having far-reaching implications for other judicial cases or political matters before the judiciary, which have a similar tone?
It's going to be a precedent-setting case, Tsepiso. The MEC feels that there's a degree of not being involved, which is necessary for members of Executive Council so that they don't interfere with procurement processes. The view that is shared by the SIU is that the MEC should be close enough to processes that they are able to provide oversight, and in fact, where they fail, ultimately they are responsible. So that nexus between the administration and political leadership is going to be tested in this case, and I think it's important that Bandile Masuku challenges it in the fashion that he does. What that should mean for his appointment politically, I do think that sometimes ministers think that they are employed in the same way that those who are subject to the Basic Conditions of Employment Act are, and in fact they are not. So if on the basis of a perception only by their political heads that they didn't do what was required, never mind that there's an SIU report to that effect, they should accept, because they are politicians. You're not protected by the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. So that's an important thing. But also there's the party political process that he is busy with, where he's expecting a charge sheet from the ANC. I think we must accept that political parties have got a right to protect more than just issues of legality. They should be concerned with issues of morality and ethics and perception. So the ANC is within its rights to take action against its comrades.
Thank you so much.
Need to be brought accountable.
Thank you so much for your time and insights. Ongama Mtimka is a political analyst. And coming up, we'll also catch up with the Gauteng Education spokesperson, Steve Mabona, on the end of the week 2 of the National Senior Certificate exams amid the pandemic and dealing with those who've tested positive for COVID-19.